morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Michael Moonesinghe. As Natasha said, I'm the chief exec of Glover Daniels International, which is a human capital consultancy business predominantly based around research, executive search, and data intelligence. Born and bred in the UK, as you can probably tell from the accent, although I now live on the beautiful tropical island of Sri Lanka. So I said I'd ruin everyone's day. It's always 32 degrees here and usually sunny, although we now have monsoon weather, so it's a bit grey and raining. So maybe you beat me with the sunshine today. So that's a little bit about me. I've been in recruitment 34 years. I'm very old. Well, hopefully with old age comes experience, which we're going to share with you today. And predominantly my background is in executive search. I spent 8 years in contingency recruitment and then moved into executive search and actually spent 10 years recruiting for the search industry. So Glover Daniels started as a search for search business in 1999. James Kahn claimed he was the first search for search, but I pointed out he did rec to rec, and we actually adopted a search process to find experienced recruiters that weren't actively on the job market to suit our clients' needs. So a lot of the search companies I'm going to be talking about, and I'm not necessarily going to be knocking them, but I spent 10 years recruiting for them, so I know them incredibly well. I know their processes, and I know what they do, how they do it, and what tools they use, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So I'm a self-confessed poacher turned gamekeeper, and I'm guilty as charged. I'm going to welcome Colin, Minto, who's a good friend of mine and business colleague that we started working together, I think 2011, was it, Colin?
2011, yes, Michael.
Yeah, so I'll let Colin give a quick intro about himself as well.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Natasha. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, Colin Minto. I'm a global head of talent acquisition, employer brand, HR tech, and EDI. I'm thrilled to join this call because, as Michael said, I started using Michael back in 2011 to support the function that I built, which was quite innovative back in G4S when I was the head of resourcing there. Yeah, really looking forward to getting into the conversation and discussion and debate.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to the next slide. And I thought we could start with a poll first to see who has an in-house search capability, i.e. you're doing it yourself, you're not paying external search consultants to do it. It's just so I can see who the audience is and do that. So we'll leave that up for probably 30 seconds if you can vote quickly. There will be 2 or 3 polls during the talk. It's just so that we can get an understanding. So an in-house search capability. Just whilst we're doing that, just so you can see, one of the things we're going to cover today is sort of what is search. And it's a bit of a misnomer, and we'll go through that. There's an awful lot of pretensions about it, a lot of misnomers. People think it's one thing and in fact it's something else. So I'm hoping to just clear some of the water for that. So if you can just vote whether you already have an in-house search capability, and we'll see. Wow, 83% of you do. Okay, we can go home then, Colin. So that's excellent. That's excellent to know, because I think a lot of people have seen as the budgets are being stretched now, that companies are having to look at finding their own talent. So we'll move on to the next slide. If you're looking to introduce that, we can certainly talk about how we can do that. And specifically, if you do have your own in-house search capability, I'm hoping that today is going to be of interest, because there are 3 very different skill sets in executive search, which is why consultancies typically have 3 different people. So they will have the business developer, the senior consultant, the client partner, who is the salesperson, who goes and sells the assignment or sells the opportunity to the candidate. You have a researcher, who is effectively a data miner, someone who's very detail conscious, someone sits in front of the internet for hours and hours and hours and hours a day, looking for that golden nugget that you're looking for. And then you get the person who manages the process through, who might be the recruiter consultant, might be the TA consultant, who will arrange interviews, handle the hiring manager, salary negotiations, get involved in all of that. So there are 3 very different skill sets. And if one person in your team is doing all of that, I would like to suggest that there are better ways that you might want to do it, because there are 3 very different skill sets that not everyone has. And as I've shown there, a lot of people are just burning up money unnecessarily. If we could have the next slide, please, Natasha. She's doing this because I am a bit of a techno phobe, so I apologize. I should have been doing this, but she beats me on technology. This is what search isn't. It used to be when I got into search, certainly years and years ago, you had to have gone to a certain public school, which I certainly didn't. You had to have come from one of the regiments or one of the armed forces to be successful. And you'll still see a legacy of that. Certainly in a lot of the big search companies, you'll find brigadier this, general that, major this. And they use an old boy network. And in some industries, it's particularly effective. In others, I think it takes away the whole concept that executive search is a process-driven operation. So that's certainly what you don't have to have. And I certainly have not done either. Move on to the next one, please, Natasha. That's another misconception, that we use search consultancies because they've got a little black book. And if any of you have a management team that is actually saying to you, the business is saying to you, oh no, you've got to go to them because they have a little black book, they know who to call. I would suggest that's not the case, except in very few, probably niche searches where they will know people. They will certainly have start points, and that's why you go to a financial search specialist if you want a finance director, but you shouldn't be going to them if you want the IT director. You should go to someone who networks with IT directors. And it was always funny when I sold executive search, 30% non-retained, only retained searchers, is I said, well, I network with senior people in the search industry. That's who I network with. I know the movers and shakers. That's why you should come to me. There is an element of that, but I know the way that researchers work, having placed hundreds of them into search companies. They sit in front of LinkedIn, the same as probably your team do, and screen through LinkedIn. And we'll talk about LinkedIn in a moment. It's certainly not the be-all and end-all, and is significantly out of date most of the time. So the perception is that they have a little black book. The reality is they don't. They use exactly the same tools that most of us do to find people. Move on, please, Natasha. So what is executive search? Let's get down to that. I would describe it as it's proactive recruitment instead of reactive recruitment. In other words, you make the move towards the candidate, potential candidate, as opposed to them being reactive. They've not replied to a job advert online. They've not sent you the CV or in the paper or been referred to you. They have not made the move. They are what's called passive job seekers. And a lot of people say that everyone is a passive job seeker. So I love it when I used to call people and they say, no, I'm not looking for a job. Instead of them expecting me to say, oh, thank you, goodbye, I actually used to say, oh, perfect, just the person that my client wants me to present this opportunity to. They don't want someone who's going home, filling in job applications or spending every lunch hour screening scouring the internet for their next move. So everyone is a passive job seeker. And it's really about money. In my 34 years, I think if I looked at who moves for money only, I would say it's significantly in the minority. And again, when we look at the process, I'll suggest that there are other things you need to do before. So it's proactive, not reactive. And the idea is to find the best in the market and not just someone who's on a database at the time. Whether it's your database or a search consultant's database, it doesn't matter, or a job board. If they're the only ones that are putting their head up at the moment saying, I'm looking for a job, and you're selecting from them, they might be great at their job, but they may not be the best in the market. And if you want to do proper executive search, which I would question whether some of the search companies actually do this, is you need to look at the whole market. You need to create what we call a universe. So who are your competitors? Who works for your competitors? How long have they been there? Where did they come from? It's interesting to know where your competitors lose people to as well. And this takes you into more of a larger data intelligence thing that I know Colin and I will speak about in a moment on the importance of data intelligence of your competitors. But you should also be looking at your other allied sectors. Who else has transferable skills that could move into your business? HR, finance, IT. They're typically transferable skills. They don't necessarily need to have come from a retail organization to go and work in a hospitality business and vice versa. So are you actually mapping a complete universe to find the best in the market? That takes time. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. But if you do it properly, you'll find the best in the market, not the best on the market. Next one, please, Natasha. I mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great and everyone uses it. I'm old enough to mention And I remember having a discussion with a few people in London recently. I'm old enough to remember the time before LinkedIn. I think it's made people very lazy. People search LinkedIn, they say they've done an executive search. No, you haven't. Not everyone's on LinkedIn. I remember days before computer, Colin. Can you remember days before the computer when we were in recruitment?
Might have the jump on me there. You might have the jump on me
You're
there.
not, you're not as old as me. I remember going to the library and getting the Compass directory, which is about this thick, and flicking it through. We never had mobile phones, and writing down numbers in my book and going back to the office to phone up to say who's the sales director. LinkedIn is typically 30% out of date at any one time. We know I have teams of researchers that screen internet. We have professional licenses as well, of course. But that's just one of the tools, and we'll talk about some of the other tools in a bit. But we expect movement in 25 to 35% of them at any time. People are being promoted, they've changed jobs, they're no longer in Birmingham, they're now in Bristol. So, and certainly after the Great Resignation, I would say the majority of ATS or CRMs are massively out of date. Unless they have, I mean, LinkedIn is something we're supposed to keep up to date ourselves. If something that you've got, a database that they've not updated, it's probably 50 to 70% out of date now, which is expensive. If you've got people using that as your data source, it's very expensive. So you need accurate, verified data, verified, thorough data, if you're to find the best hidden talent in the market. Feel free to throw up on the chat if there's any other things that you use, whilst I suggest company websites, press releases, conferences are great. Anyone who's attended an IHR conference or anything else recently, you're on a speaker list or you're on an attendees list. So certainly that's something that can be done. One thing I should flag up, I used to be an English policeman, British policeman in my first days before I got a real job. So we don't do anything unethical or illegal to source data. And I don't suggest you do either, people hacking computers. There's an awful lot of information there in the public domain, but you need to search for it. And saying you've done a LinkedIn search and saying you've done a search really is, you're doing about a third of the job. Yep. So you need to look at websites, press releases, company speaker lists, all sorts of areas where people can give you information. We'll move on to the next slide, Natasha. Keep putting up suggestions on the chat on other areas. Just before we move to the next poll, typically search fees are 30-35% of the annual compensation. So that's the kind of fee that you're typically expecting to pay. I mean, in years and years ago, it used to be that fees were capped at £100,000. The fee cap at 100,000. It's not always capped, and sometimes if you are still using search companies, you can negotiate that before. And certainly we work with some search companies still where we do the mapping for them. Unfortunately, we sign non-disclosures, we can't say who, but we've worked with quite a few companies where they outsource the research to us, and then they take it over from there. So move on to the next one, please. So I mentioned the research is the important part. That's the core part that actually underwrites everything you do, creating that universe. A lot of researchers in the search companies are fresh graduates. They are probably very good at looking at the internet, but that's not the black book that you're looking to hire. And that's why it's a misnomer that, well, we've used such a company because they've got this big noise on their letterhead. Yeah, the research is done by typically a fresh graduate. Or there are career researchers, before anyone jumps on me, there are career researchers. And, it's a very detail conscious role. You need to sit on the internet for hours and hours and hours and have a lot of patience. And actually a lot of detective skills when I was a policeman work in this, where the person you talk to is not necessarily the right person. And if you are doing your own search, pick up the phone. If the person you're talking to is not right, ask them who is. Who do you know? Who in your social circle might be of interest to hear about this opportunity? Because teachers socialize with teachers, doctors with doctors typically, and HR tend to know people in the HR world that want to move. So certainly it's worth asking for recommendations, and we'll mention that in a moment. Next slide, please, Natasha. Yeah, I mean, searches take this long to do, 12 to 16 weeks from beginning to end, mainly because the research does take a long time to do. It doesn't necessarily take 6 weeks, it takes about 8 to 10 days, but researchers are typically working on 5 assignments at the same time. And even in your businesses, they're probably doing that. Our team, I deliberately focus them on one project at any one time. So beginning to end, the team of 4 only work on one project. That way they stay focused, and we can get things done a lot quicker. So 8 days of research to us is actually 2 days turnaround time. But that's often why searches take a long time. And then you've got to remember, if you're using search for senior roles, business critical roles, that typically they're going to be on 3 to 6 months notice period. Even if they're put on garden leave, told to go and sit at home, you still can't employ them. So the faster you can get round to an offer, the better you can onboard that typically business critical person. Next slide, please. Yeah, Colin, I'm going to bring you in on this in a moment. The data is also relevant, not just for specific searches. If you actually expand that and say, we need to attract people to us, we need to attract people with a specific diversity, and there's many different areas that come into EDI now, you can target the research for that, whether it's women on the board, whether it's people from certain ethnic groups. You can actually target your research to make sure your shortlist is actually representing what the company direction. Colin, I know in G4S you had some experience of that.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to the point you made earlier, Michael, about proactive rather than reactive. I think what I've always wanted to achieve is having a queue of people that you could speak to whenever a role became available. I know it's not an exact science, and there's a cost involved with doing that, but that's obviously why I sought out yourself and used yourself to have that always on, I would say, radar, looking at the marketplace to try and anticipate and build that talent pool, but also keep them current and relevant. And I had the particular task of standing up a senior management stroke exec function at G4S. And I had to do it quite differently because you're going back to another point you made around budget. I know it's not always about money, but we didn't have big budgets. So the people that I actually hired to support me and do this were mum returners to a certain extent, great recruiters that wanted to work flexibly, but didn't have all the hours that you'd expect a recruiter would have working, 8 till 8 until the fingernails bled on the laptop. So I needed to supplement that with, as you rightly said, a different skill set to do that research piece. So totally concur, and really, really need to underpin what you said about the different skill sets that are required to deliver the whole exec search function piece.
That's great. Thank you, Colin. Certainly, when you are building this knowledge, it's so useful for all sorts of things. Knowing what the competitors are doing, like I say, where they're hiring from, where they're losing people, which other talent might be available. Because if we move on to the next one, one of the important things to remember with search is the chances of you calling the person at the right time when they're absolutely ready to move is actually a bit of a lottery, and is very, very rare that happens. Natasha, can you get the next slide, please? So what's important is if you stay in touch with people, ask for referrals, ask for value-added networking. So then LinkedIn becomes just a directory for you to refer to. Where you add the value is knowing about that person. When I was a headhunter calling people, I had someone calling search consultants to think how much fun that was for a living. All my clients were the search companies, including some of the big search companies, and all my candidates were search consultants. Not the easiest candidate base to manage. And one guy said, "Oh, look, I know what you're working on. Yeah, you've just gone down a list, you've got to pee, and you're just calling me." So I said, right, let's just stop right there. I'm a very busy man, so are you. I don't waste my time, let alone your time, calling you unless I think this opportunity is of use to you. So before you pick up the phone, and when we go to talk about approach calls, you need to do your research and find out about that person. There's all sorts of information now. A lot of people live their lives on social media. Look at their Instagram, look at their Facebook page, look at their company page. You'll be surprised what's there. And just a warning for anyone who is in between jobs or thinking of changing jobs at the moment, go and sanitize your social media profile, because people do look at it. We look at it, and we will we will look and see, and something that seemed funny 5 years ago, going down the high street, maybe with your trousers hanging down, at a stag party might have seemed funny, but not if you're going for a senior role with a blue chip client. So just be aware the internet has a memory. And when we train our researchers, they're tasked to find certain things about me, because I have quite a distinctive name. There's only one Michael Moonesinghe in the world, to the best of my knowledge. There is a photograph of me on the internet somewhere, which I didn't put up, I can't take down, in a Carmen Miranda hat, coconut bra, and a grass skirt. I do hasten to add, I was playing the dame in a pantomime at one point, but that photo is there, and people could find it if you can see if you can find it. I've also acted in certain plays. I've also directed a play in amateur theatre, and the researchers are tasked to find that. In other words, the internet has a memory, and you can find a lot of information about people. So before you pick up the phone and talk to people, actually find out about things. If the name someone just mentioned there, Katie, about if they've got unique names, you're right. I'm unique that I have a unique name. I'm sure there might be other Colin Mintos in the world. But if the photograph is there, you can have a look and compare it with their social media. It's not always possible. It's not 100% guaranteed, but you can often find a social media profile. So I said to this very obnoxious search consultant, I said, you're 35 years old, you got married last year, you've just moved to Fleet. Last year you built 350,000, your major client is so-and-so, shall I carry on? And he was, wow, how did you find that out? I found it out from a referral from a colleague who used to work with him. So when you talk to other people, ask the information. If they're not ready to move, they're not ready to move. That doesn't mean they can't be a very useful source of information for you. And when you're networking, certainly at social events, business events, ask questions, sow the seeds. Hey, we're looking for so-and-so. If you know anyone, please pass my details on, and it'd be great if they can contact me. And don't forget to go back and say thank you. Whether they've been useful or not, the referral, always go back and say thank you, because they might think of somebody else for you. And if you get a referral, always ask, is it open or closed? Can I mention your name? Is it okay if I say hi from you? Because if I call him and say, hi, Colin, I spoke to Bill, he sends his best regards, I've got a great opportunity, thought it might be of interest to you. Can I take 5 minutes of your time, just run it past you? Colin's like to listen to me, unless Bill's an idiot, and he just won't listen to anyone Bill's recommended, he's going to listen to me. Whereas if I say, oh, yeah, your name came up somewhere on a list, can't remember where, it doesn't wash as well. So try and get an open referral if you can.
So, Michael, someone put up in the chat that referrals was one of their core ways of sourcing candidates, and I think it's worth mentioning. Referrals are great. There's lots of referral platforms out there. There's lots of, you can have conversations internally, say, hey, refer someone and we'll give you £2,000, £3,000, etc. One of the things I think is worth bearing in mind is how you can stimulate referrals without necessarily having that monetary reward as the carrot, because there's something that I always like to start with when you're looking at the whole end-to-end strategy, and search and referrals is a huge part of it, is creating the right environment within the organization to have very sticky candidates, very fulfilled and happy employees, developing employees, supporting employees, making sure the right treatments, behaviors, the conditions are spot on. Because that then stimulates people to want to stay, obviously, which is great. Stimulates people to work hard, but it also stimulates people to say, do you know what? When asked, do I know anyone that wants to work for this great company? I am going to suggest these 3 or 4 people that I really know and love, and I'm confidently going to be able to refer my organization because I believe in the organization itself. So I think a lot of this also bakes down into the foundations that you're creating to be able to make these, let's say, activities as successful as possible.
Yeah, very good point there, Colin, very good point. And one of the things, I was going to touch on this later, one of the things when you call someone, in fact, let's move on if we can, Natasha. I think I can cover it in the next point. The dreaded headhunt call, people are terrified at it. Don't be terrified at it. You're not selling double glazing or life insurance or yellow pages advertising. You're calling up to tell someone about a great opportunity that, if you've done your research right, is a career move for them, should represent a greater salary, although that's not always the be-all and end-all, which will improve their prospects and their family prospects. And it's a free service. So don't be scared of picking up the phone. What is the worst they can do? You say, no, thank you, goodbye. But be prepared. because you don't get a second chance to pick up the phone to say, hi, Mr. Smith, we've not spoken before. My name's Michael. Let me come straight to the point. I work in executive search. Purpose of the call, I have an excellent opportunity with one of my clients or with our business that I'd love to bring to your attention. Is now a convenient time to speak, or could I make an appointment to talk to you at a more convenient time? That's it. That's the headhunt call. There are people that can train you to do that, and we have a partner who works with us that can train you or your team if they don't have that skill set. If they are a process-driven consultant, nothing wrong with that. We can help you upskill to having those, making those calls, having the confidence to make the calls. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's a process again, and it is the numbers game. Next slide, please, Natasha. When you do the approach call, there's certain things that you've got to watch. One is be prepared, okay? Be prepared to sell your company. There's nothing worse doing the approach call to say, I've got a sales director job, are you looking for a job? Okay, tell me about your experience. Where have you done? What have you done? No. Back to front. You've called them. Do the research, know how long they've been at the company, verify very quickly, can I just confirm, are you still the sales manager for the Southwest region of the UK? And you still work for so-and-so, is that correct? No, I'm now the UK sales director. I moved to London 3 months ago. Must update my LinkedIn, haven't done it yet. Because now the role you've called them for is completely irrelevant, yeah? So check the information. 30% of the information you look at will be out of date, and keep reminding yourself of that if you're only using LinkedIn. That's why we verify all our data before we pass it to a client. It takes a long time, every company's called, but it's the only way we can have what we call accurate, verified, thorough data. Also check that it's convenient to speak. I had one person who I called at the appointed time, and he had it on speakerphone with his salespeople. He was just about to do a conference call. And I said, is that a convenient time to speak? He went, no, I have 12 of my team looking at me. Good morning, everyone. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you later. So just check that it's not always convenient for people to talk. They might be sitting facing their boss. So be prepared for yes, no conversations. Is it convenient to speak now? No. If I gave you my mobile number, would you be able to call me back later? Yeah, I'm available up until 6 o'clock this evening or any time over the weekend. Feel free to call me. Is that okay? Yeah, maybe you could just text me or personal email and we can continue the conversation that way. Be prepared for the call. Yeah, they're not difficult to do, but you do need to prepare for them on what it is. And one of the questions I ask, if they are willing to speak, is, are you open-minded to considering a career opportunity at the current time or in the near future? Not are you looking for a job? There's a massive difference. Are you open-minded to considering a career opportunity? And let's say 9 out of 10 will say, I'm not looking for a job, or maybe tell me what you've got, and whatever. So you need to check that. If they say, no, I'm not, that doesn't mean they're a dead candidate. You can say, well, when would you be ready to move? What would be something that would make you move? And okay, things change, circumstances change, but it might be in 3 months, he's expecting a promotion or a pay rise. If it doesn't come in, then it won't be, he's ready to move, or he was moving house, or his wife's having a baby, or he's waiting for a bonus payout. And again, the more you know about your competitors, back to the data intelligence, when do they pay the bonus out? A lot of companies pay it out in December. January is a great time to headhunt, fantastic time. People typically will start looking for jobs, New Year resolution, sick of this, I'm moving on, call people in January, and then be ready to follow up February, March. And that's why April, May is a typically busy time in recruitment, because everyone's back filling the vacancies that have just been created. So be prepared for that. And when we go on, I know quite a lot of people in the questions have asked about the counteroffer. The best way of dealing with a counteroffer is at the approach call. And let me explain what I mean, is when you're searching out whether the person's right, I would say, look, I know I've called you, but just so I'm clear in my mind, what would it be that you're currently not getting, or what would you be looking for in your next career move? Is it a salary increase? Is it a board level position? Is it more international travel? Is it working with the latest technology? What is it that would make you move? And we call those hot buttons. I don't know if they still have the advert. It used to be when I was in the UK, the Duracell bunny, that normally at Christmas, that did this little drumming thing. Every time you push the button, it did a little thing. In recruitment, it's similar to that, the hot button. Find out what the hot button is, and it's rarely money, or it's money plus. So once you come to the counteroffer, and they say, oh, well, my company's brought me back at 20% more. So yeah, but hold on, you said you wanted to move because, or because, is that being fulfilled? We're able to give you the career path. We're able to give you the international exposure. We're able to give you that. So you're not then into a heavy sell that you'd be otherwise in. I'm just conscious of the time. If we, Colin, did you want to add
Michael,
anything?
there's been some really good questions come in. So let's.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. They've just suddenly disappeared. Hang on. There we go. So one of the questions from Sally: is there tools that we can use to get contact details of potential profiles outside of referrals? So I assume that's also outside of LinkedIn as well. What are the things that you invariably would use as a business to get details of people?
There are sites that claim, and I probably get 5 a week, and I'm sure everyone in this call gets 5 a week. We can get you meetings, lists of HR, list of IT directors, whatever. We can give you their contact numbers. We've tried a few of them. They actually can't get any more information than what my team can get. And actually, one of the best ways is picking up the phone and asking people, hello, I need to speak to your sales director. Could I just check what extension he's on, or what his mobile number is, what's the email address? That's sometimes the best way to find the information. There are other ways you can do it. There are in the US, people.com and Spoke are quite good at for telephone numbers. Most of them you have to pay for and subscribe after you get the first free trial. But referrals is often the best way, and that's why I love calling a referral to say, Bill gave me your number. He asked me to say hi. I've got something to talk to you on a personal matter. Is it convenient to speak? Yes. Okay. Here's the opportunity. It's always the best way. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. No, sorry to derail that, but it was just a pertinent one sitting there. I thought it was the right time to ask it.
Yep. And Zoom. Yep. Zoom info is very good that we can use. Thank you, Roy. Can we skip on to the next one, please, Natasha? It sort of covers this as well. When you're doing the approach call, it's an excellent opportunity to sell your employer value proposition and the brand to passive candidate. Even if they don't join you, it's an excellent way to sell. So make sure you know your story. It sounds so obvious, doesn't it? But they don't. People phone up to sell a job and they say, well, why should I join you? I work for XYZ. Why should I come and join ABC? You should know why they should join ABC, because you've already researched XYZ. You know what their products are, what their technology is, and be realistic in your approach calls. If someone is the sales director for the number 1 or number 2 in your business and you're the number 3, they're not going to come and join you unless you've got something like share opportunities or another great opportunity for them. So you need to be clear, why would someone move? Their number 3, their sales manager, might go to a number 1 as another way round. Or sorry, the number 3 from a 1 would come to be a sales director of a 3 in the business. But do your research and find out where you are, see about your brand and be realistic, and have this as a great opportunity to tell people about your business. And have good manners, go back and follow. To me, it is good manners. Follow up, thanks for the referral. Jimmy's not ready to move, but it's okay. He told me about Steve, and Steve's having a conversation with us. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing that. You are reinforcing your positive brand as a company that someone might like to come and work for. Because, Colin, I'm sure you'll jump in on this in a moment. People join companies normally because of people. They like the people. And often they leave companies because they don't like the people. They're not treated right. They're not respected. They're not given the credibility. Colin, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, no, I did. It links nicely to Caroline's question here about business case for this. I'm a great believer of playing in your home stadium and making sure that the candidates are approached by the organisation, not necessarily by a third party, because your point here about EVP, employer brand, the people that know what it's like to work in an organisation, what the culture is like, what the activities, the processes, the whole experience is like, are the people that work in it. And I know, yes, we can brief search agencies to the nth degree on who we are. But if you haven't lived in there, it's not the most authentic story. So we're talking about, the question was, what about a business case for this? One of the things for me, yes, there's a cost piece. At G4S, we didn't have massive deep pockets. And I sold the premise that we'd probably be able to eat into some of our cost. But I also sold the premise that we want to control the narrative. We want to control the story. We want to be the ones telling the market how awesome we are as an organization, not necessarily a third party that might be motivated by different reasons. We want to hire people. Search organizations, they want to hire people for us, but there's also a commercial element involved in that as well. So I think when you're making a business case for this, cost is probably going to work, but equally that experience, giving that authentic message and owning the story. I mean, there's so much fake news out there at the moment. You don't know what to believe. But if the organization is calling me and it's a representative, an officer of that business, then I'm probably going to lean towards that in terms of believing it than I would have from a third party.
Yeah, there's always the opportunity. There's always the occasions when it has to be done confidentially. Either you don't want the market to know that your sales director has left and you're completely exposed in a particular area, and it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to find someone, and then 3 to 6 months they offer for them to join you. So that's often why people use search companies, for confidentiality. It's a crazy reason to pay £35,000, in my opinion, when there was another way when someone else could do the approach for you. But yes, confidentiality is one reason. The other reason is people are not confident about their business, about their market. They've not done their research on the competitors, which I would say you do. And when you get, if we move to the next slide, Natasha, if you get the star candidate, so the one after this as well, please. It's important people get a positive experience, whether they go through the process or not. It's one of my absolute soapboxes that companies spend millions and millions of pounds, big companies, every year saying, we're the company of employer of choice, come to work for us, we're a great company. They then get 100 responses to an advert and only say you'll be contacted if you're shortlisted. And the argument is, well, we're too busy to reply to everyone. To me, is crazy. You should ask someone to do that for you. Send 97 people this email, thanks very much, but for your interest in us, but you're not going to do it. If you want to create that employer brand completely from subject, then have them good manners to respond to people and give a positive experience right the way through. Occasionally you get a star candidate. To me, a star candidate is someone who culturally fits your business, has relevant skills. They may not be ready to move now, but that doesn't mean that you just strike them through, which is what happens in the search company. Dead candidate, not interested, bye. We actually did a test for one of the big search companies, one of the big five, I won't mention which one, where we were asked to verify their data, and the person was down as a dead candidate. And I said, how old is this thing you're giving us? Is it years old? They said, no, it was done 6 months ago. I said, well, I don't think so. And they said, yeah, 6 months ago. I said, well, this person has a building named after him because he died in the tsunami of 2004. No wonder he's a dead candidate. So even one of the big companies was padding research. So I was very happy to show them the link about the building named after him. When you get a star candidate, keep in touch with them. Think about maybe arranging a social, just a few drinks down the bar, with a couple of potentially prospective colleagues of that person. Show that person that you would really like that one person to join your business. And it's not a case of get it or forget it. Build up a relationship. It's a courtship. Build up a relationship. So when they're actually, they're ready to move forward in the process, you're the person that has taken an interest in them. You're the person that said, hey, how did the house move go? How was Jimmy's football team or whatever going on? Take an interest in that person. They'll be interested in coming to join you because you're a kind of company that people want. People vote with their feet and they put a lot of effort, I think, in choosing their companies. Colin, I know you.
I'm just going to say, I know what's going through people's heads that are hearing that. It's capacity. So you're absolutely right. That all that communication is so vitally important. I'm between roles at the moment, and I'm experiencing exec search in-house and search agency. And there's a real gulf in the quality of the communications that's coming out. So communicate, keep people warm, even when they're not the ideal candidate. But then the question comes of, well, how do we do that? How do we have the capacity as a small team? And let's be honest, budgets in TA are constantly under review. How do we do that? How do we ensure we've got that level of communication, got that level of intelligence? We're constantly keeping our data up to date when we've got the resources we've got. And, it's a leading question, obviously, Michael, because it's why I, found you in the first place.
Yeah, okay. I know time's moving on. Thank you, Colin. So star candidates keep in touch with. Let's just jump through the slides. One counter offers I mentioned. Don't always trade on money, but be aware when you're managing your internal side, your hiring manager, that the offer that they should make should be one that's acceptable in the first, should be attractive in the first thing. So if the person's on 100,000, they're not going to move for 100, 105,000. The chances are the counter offer is going to come in at 20, 25% more. That's typical because they know it's going to cost them 30 to 35% to replace that person. So you need to take that into account when you do the counter offer, when you put the offer in. So make sure, particularly if you're doing it yourself, you're not paying 35% search fee. So you can actually put that into the offer process. But also go back to the hot button, go back to what was the person looking for? Why did they want to move? And keep flagging that up. And if you keep a constant conversation with the star candidate, you can say, look, I know you wanted international exposure. We haven't got the right role for you at the moment. But when one does, I'll certainly be in touch with you. Hey, something's come up. Shall we meet for a coffee? Because something brilliant has come up that I think is going to be of interest to you. You're already closing them down before. And obviously, I'm sure you all do. Tell them when they go to resign, when you go to resign, you're going to get a counter offer. We were just about to give you a pay rise. We were just about to give you a promotion, and get the candidate to realise that it's basically rubbish. That's not the case. But manage the counter offers, but manage them right from the beginning at the approach call, not at the end. If you do it at the end, it's a heavy sell, and they can see that it is. Yeah.
This underpins your point, Michael, about employer brand, EVP, reputation as well. I mean, there should be a really compelling reason for people to join, and we should have people queuing up to join our organisations. And that's where, if you've got it right, counter offers are also sometimes going to be ignored by candidates because there is a real draw to actually want to come and work for the organisation that's trying to get them to work for them.
Yeah. Natasha, I know we've got a couple more polls that we want to do, but do we have anything else there? Yeah. So what's stopping you from doing this? And you can answer many times. Is it your team's time? Is it the skill set? They're just not comfortable or confident to do the research.
Oh, I'm not sure if Michael's frozen there.
Oh, okay. So maybe I can't see the polls right in. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Michael's frozen. So look, let me take this on. Whilst people are filling in that poll, there's been some interesting commentary in the chat. The point was made. The other big benefit of proactive search strategies, if you've got your own in-house function, so we're talking about the business case again. Everybody that you find is yours, essentially, or the data on them is yours, as opposed to when you use a search firm, every hire is chargeable. So over time, if you're building up that pool of individuals, that pool of warm candidates or potentials that can come in and work for you, you're essentially avoiding knock-on fees further down the line because you've invested up front in your own research. We've got you back, Michael. I started to there.
No, thank you. The wonders of living in the tropics is when we had the monsoon season, unfortunately the power goes off. So I quickly switched to a hotspot. Apologies for that.
No worries. I've got the results, I think, from the poll here for you. So hopefully you should be able to see what's stopping people from undertaking searches in-house.
That's exactly what I said earlier, Michael. It's time, it's capacity. Is the main thing. So that's obviously where you come in, right?
It is. So it's a case of using the resource smartly.